welcome to the Nobody Speaks podcast. I am your host, Antonio Longo, and I am joined by one of my favorite people to sit aside from on Zoom, Gavin Connor of the Holy Hour podcast.
Hello, my friend. Thanks
What's
for having me on.
yeah, loving crossing over.
Yeah.
So as some people, most people probably know, Gavin is the main attraction of the Holy Hour podcast, the All Cure biweekly podcast, which I am proud to hop on and be a part of, and as well as a bunch of other people. So for those of you who are watching, listening, that don't know and want to check that out, you can go get geeky with us about the Cure biweekly. Look it up, the Holy Hour, and there's a lot of back catalog there that's even predates.
Whole lot of Cure talk.
A whole lot of Cure talk. As I'm sure we will at some point bring up the Cure
Yes.
in this episode as well. But it's fun. I wanted to have Gavin over on the Holy Hour podcast because he, like me, is a musician as well, lover of music and all fun things. Big Star Wars fan as well, like me. So I figured we would shoot the shit, talk about some of the things that have been going on so far this year in entertainment and music. As we are kind of in June, we're hitting that middle mark of 2022. And also, since both of us have had our toes in the waters of singer-songwriter music, we're going to go over our top 5 favorite singer-songwriters, and we're going with like the more recent ones, as to not dive into the whole
a lot of asterisks.
John Denver. Yeah, like I'm like let's not go that route.
Set a lot of rules for these categories.
Yeah, we'll just keep it like more modern, like stuff for our generation guys, because don't get me wrong, like I love the old school guys, you know what I mean? Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash. I mean, when you go into that, Bob Dylan is was the first song I ever learned how to play on guitar, was Blowing in the Wind,
Right. Yeah, even if you're not a super fan, it's like you can't really deny.
Johnny you can't deny or get away from any of those guys. Yeah, 100%. So it's really we're going to keep it to the more recent stuff with our singer-songwriter list. So I thought that would be kind of fun as well. Now, Gavin, let's dive a little bit first here into, when did you start playing music?
Let's see. I guess just I count the music listening and getting obsessed as the first, I guess around must have been 4th or 5th grade is when I really started stealing the tapes from my brothers and stuff and making fake album covers for songs I'd written that I never even wrote, and I was making so
that's cool.
That kind of thing, or way early on, and inventing bands in my head. But I guess like piano lessons was the first real thing around 6th grade. I got into that. Again, that's when I really got into Cure and stuff, and I was like, shit, I could do that. The little you get a little you start to feel good about yourself. So I got into that and was writing really dreadful keyboard piano songs. It didn't get really in serious until about mid high school, probably, when I got a guitar finally. Those were like the closest real songs. I started playing with my friend Donald on drums, and my brother, I taught him bass from my piano lessons. So we kind of had this core. We're all just hang out in the basement anyway. yeah. So I just write out that he just do the dum 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 dum, and we could get something going. And so around this time it was like 93 or so, 94, and probably about 95 when it started kicking in, where we were writing and recording some stuff, trying to go for some what was it, I guess power pop would be the angle we were really into. The
right. So did you guys go straight into like trying to write stuff, or were you doing covers?
We did a few covers, but I think I just really gravitated towards the writing right off the bat. And it was someone, I don't know if it's something that my music teacher kind of caught on to, that I wasn't like the most like badass pianist, where I was like tearing up everything, where she just kind of was like, hey, why don't you check? I kept getting these song books I would order, and we'd work through the songs. And there were like Smith's ones and Cure ones and all kinds of stuff, and whatever I could find at the tape stores, and she
Yeah.
saw that I liked the arrangement side of it more. So she just kind of made it like an assignment around that time frame of like, just write a song, see what you could do, and like bring it in. And I would just bring in, we had like the sequencer digital piano. So it'd be like
Right.
bass line, boom, 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 boom. And I would just do
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
really like Cure rip off, kind of like, dun, 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 even
Yeah.
like write lyrics out to it and stuff. The rain is so hard and all this stuff.
Yeah. It's dark.
Yeah. She's like, wow, this is really, are you okay? But
Yeah.
so yeah, she really encouraged that. And it was kind of cool. And I was able to translate all that into when the 90s kind of kicked in more. And I was like, I can't be playing a keyboard in a band. I just looked like a dork up there, like singing and sitting down, ding, ding, ding. So I was like, I need a guitar. And we started getting into the Boston rock bands and stuff more than like Seattle grunge or anything. We really gravitated towards Lemonheads and Buffalo Tom and Blake Babies and all those kind of bands.
Dinosaur Jr. kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
so they were the ones that kind of, I don't know why. I think it was just because it was more of a fun side, which was weird being
Yeah.
a diehard Cure fan at that point. I was like, I need some fun music in my life. So, yeah, I mean, by the end of high school, I was all about it. Like, we got to write all these songs, we got to record them, and that was kind of the goal from then on. And
What
never
was your
stopped.
what was your first guitar?
I had it was an Epiphone SG, like the little,
Oh, okay.
like, so that was my first, and hung on to
So,
that
so it
for a
wasn't the
while.
Strat. It was not a
No, I
Strat
wanted to
Squire.
go
Wow, that's
full
like
SG. Yeah.
99.9% of people's first
Yeah,
guitar.
exactly. I was like, nah, that's boring looking. I need that SG, the black, the closest I could get was the Epiphone, and it was just so clunky,
Yeah.
the Squire version is Epiphone really. But I even hung on to it for a long time too, where I tried to switch out the pickups and put like good humbuckers in it and stuff, and
Yeah.
it made it like this ultimate distortion guitar that was just really nasty. But eventually the neck just started getting really
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
so
don't
yeah,
even did those necks have truss rods?
I
I
don't
don't even think
know.
they did those.
Nah, it
I
was
mean,
like a solid 2x4 thing.
yeah, 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 I
Yeah,
know it's but it's the SG is that iconic. Well, I think thanks to ACDC,
yeah,
had that iconic like doubles, and the black one was always like, yeah, it's like Batman, you
yeah,
know.
totally, yeah. And I was even oblivious to that kind of stuff because I grew up with the already jumping back to like the synth pop kind of stuff was what got me. I was big on OMD and New Order and stuff. And then when I finally got into guitars, it was just these kind of Boston rock bands that they all loved ACDC and stuff. I didn't know what the hell any of it was. I was only buying it because of them, so it was
Right.
like when you backtrack and realize who inspired your heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, cool. Now it makes sense.
Now, what was that stuff getting played on the radio where you grew up, or was that, where did you discover those bands? Was that,
Yeah, it was tough because we didn't even get MTV till later. Like we talked about with the videos later would
yeah,
be the main thing where we would watch 120 minutes and everything. Pretty much by that point too, like end of high school, I think we had MTV by then, and so we would just get it. But before that, it was just kind of rando stuff that was lucky through my older brothers. So I lucked out in that department where, like Blake Babies, we caught on to really early for some reason. I think we just saw the video somehow, and yeah, and then stuff like Sugar Cubes on Saturday Night Live, so we kind of could pick
right.
up on like the more alternative college rock
Mhm.
stuff early on. And we were big on like REM. Like I had a grandpop that worked for MCA as like a distributor guy, where he would go around as like the sales dude and be like, hey, you need to buy so and so units
Oh,
of
this
this
record
stuff.
coming
And
out. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so he
That's
was
cool.
cool, and he would give us all the leftover. We just, anytime we go visit him, we dig through the garage and grab all these old tapes, and it
Mhm.
was like IRS was through MCA, so we got like REM and Fine Young Cannibals and all these like super
Oh,
early
that's
ones,
cool.
like before, yeah, and like Transvision Vamp and all these like semi-obscure bands that weren't being played on the radio by any means. But I kind of caught on to that early because my mom really loved pop radio, and I would just listen to that constantly with her, so I knew like these bands that I liked weren't getting on there, so it
Right.
was kind of
Yeah.
cool that I was just, and then when like The Cure did break with Love Song and stuff, I was like, oh, it's climbing the charts. It was like this crossover of worlds. She knew I loved
Yeah.
those bands, and when you finally started to see little signs of it pop up here and there, it was pretty magical.
So you naturally like knew that you had to seek out your music. So,
Yeah.
that's where the difference is in people, you know, like sometimes, like even my sister who I love dearly, who loves music, but a
Hmm.
lot of times I'll get in her car and I notice she'll just have the radio on and whatever's playing. And I'm like, I mean, the only time I'm putting on the radio is if it's like sports talk radio, like, or to
Right.
listen to a game or something. Like, I haven't gone to the radio for music in decades,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So, luckily growing up in Long Island, um, having a music scene made it so that I knew like, okay, well, this is how you find bands. You seek it out, you ask your friends, you dig through record stores,
Yeah.
but then you have those people that just kind of let the music come to them and they like some of the stuff that, okay, cool, I like this, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so you were digging for it,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
you
there's
know.
all the little clues there. I was definitely big on, you find one band you like, then you read the liner notes and you notice that they thanked
Yeah.
this dude and
Hmm.
you go buy his album, and it was
Yeah.
so much crossover, and there's a lot of misses for sure, like you might be able to see my wall of
Yeah.
CDs here. There's a lot in there that are pretty bad albums, but at the same time they're all kind of connected. It is
Yeah,
cool where it's like I wouldn't part with it because it was like, but that was the dude that played bass on this, and and he's the guy.
right, yeah. And
So,
and I bought it when I was here, when I was with this person, and we did this, and
yeah,
then we used to
totally.
drive around and listen to that song. You
Yeah,
know, that's like like what Offspring. Like I'm not an Offspring fan, but the summer that band broke, and then that's when finally some of our older friends had their driver's license and we would drive around in their cars and they had the CD and would listen to it. And I just remember there was one specific time, that we were driving around, like me, my friend Mikey, this kid Richie, and like just blasting it and blasting it and blasting it. And like, you'd pull up at a red light next to people and they'd hear you listen to it and they'd be like, yeah, so it's like I have this weird, like emotional attachment to just hearing that brings me back to those like just random good summer times at like
yeah, for sure.
17, like 16, 17, where you didn't have that a care in the world,
Right, yeah.
so it's like, people would be like shit talking Offspring and I'm like, oh yeah, but remember that summer,
Yeah, totally. It's the
so,
beauty of
and
music.
that's where guys like you and I, like, that's where we're separated in the pack, I think, and I
Yeah,
think it's great to just kind of bounce back that your music teacher saw that in you and then was like challenging you to do the writing,
yeah,
because right now, like my son Elvis is in a music school and all they do is teach them covers and they have a little band now. But
yeah,
I keep talking to him about like, well, are they showing you how to put chords together? Like, and
yeah,
and they're not. And I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get like, you know, he's so musically talented already. I'm like, don't shoebox yourself in and be that guy. Like, I ask him, I'm like, oh, have you tried to put words together? No, no, I'm not the writer. I'm like, no, no, you are. I mean,
yeah,
11, and maybe,
yeah.
maybe I'm pushing a little too early,
No, it's
but I'm the same like you. After I learned a few songs and I knew some chords, I wanted to put them together and I
mhm,
wanted to say something over them.
yeah,
And, I think that's where then eventually I did gravitate towards doing singer-songwriter stuff. Like obviously I did a bunch of bands throughout the years.
right,
Um, but there was always that in between where I kind of wrote on my own. Um, because it's like I had things I wanted to say, and maybe I wanted to say them my way. And that was my way of it also being a little bit more personal,
yeah,
Um, and it's one of those things that you either have it or you don't. Some
yeah,
some musicians are killer players and can't write. You
mhm,
know,
yeah,
like like the last episode when I was talking to, Shannon from Leathers. Same thing. We were talking about there are people that can shred and be amazing, but they
yeah,
can't put a song together.
yeah. It's just
So you have songwriters and you have musicians.
Right.
And
It is.
sometimes people don't realize those are two distinct things, totally
Yeah,
different things.
totally. Yeah, it's very strange. I definitely feel fortunate in that degree where that came super easy, in the sense of like I'll come up with something. I don't know if it'll be great or good or even if I can write a song right now if we sit down, but it's just like the idea, yeah. And then I'm a pretty crappy like technical guitarist by any means. I'm not like a dude that'll just bust this crazy ass solo, even if I'm playing with other people and stuff. I'm kind of like, but I'm more, but I'll make a whole song out of it.
Yeah, well, that was my
So,
whole thing. And I think too, as I started playing guitar, I realized I wanted to put songs together, and I realized I love to sing. So I was only concerned with putting chords together. I was
yeah.
like, I'm not gonna shred and sing,
Hmm.
so I'm not gonna waste my time going bing, 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 and
Yeah.
trying to like learn how to get that speed. I'm like, no, I just want to be able to put these things together and create music out of it. So
Yeah.
I always left that to someone else.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
I knew where my place was.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
I'm like, I'm a strummer.
Yeah. There's more here. I can't just be bogged down on this riff all day. I gotta
Yeah.
I gotta get the end of this emotions. These emotions I'm feeling.
I just need to get it out, man.
Gotta get it out there. But,
And that's like so circling back to the Holy Hour podcast, is as we discussed on Simon Gallup, it was just his birthday, the bass player of The Cure.
mhm.
um and just how much we realized now that it's come out, how much actually writing he's been doing with the band for years, as they recently got an award for it.
Yeah.
And it's, I think it's something I always kind of knew,
Yeah.
because there's a reason why the two of them, although they have broken apart and there's been multiple quittings,
Right.
um they always come back to each other. And there's the reason why, like Robert Smith has said, like, if Simon doesn't do The Cure anymore, there is no Cure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, maybe it is deeper than a friendship. Maybe it really is, his what he brings to the table in writing. And I was glad to see that Simon was getting that due respect. And also just to, that my inkling was right. I'm like, these
Yeah.
bass lines are too good, and
Right.
too, sometimes they're the whole basis of the song for it to
Yeah,
be
that's what I was
something
gonna
that
say.
Robert's just like put there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're
Like
like,
I guarantee Fascination Street, that bass line was the beginning of the writing process of that song.
right. Yeah, there's
You
so
can
many like
tell.
that are like, if you strip everything else away, of course, there's amazing cool layers thrown on top of that bass line, but it's something like other voices or something. It's like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's just the bass line, or like Faith, even the song. It's like the whole thing is the bass line, basically. Then you have
the
these cool
entire
little
thing.
floating in and out guitar parts and the lyrics and everything and the melody, make it the amazing song that it is. But there's a huge chunk of it that it's like that is it. You just play that and everybody would know that, okay, you're playing that song. It's
Yeah,
kind of a weird thing for basses, otherwise it would just be like boom, boom, boom. Like,
yeah.
you recognize this? Boom, 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 boom. Like, no, man, what the hell are you playing?
Yeah, like that's called a couple notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a song. But I recently, um with my new music project, I started diving into writing some of my songs with starting with the bass lines
Yeah.
for the first time ever. And it's been an interesting journey to do that. Now, some of the songs I didn't do that with, and I started just with some keyboards and some synths and then put a bass to it. And
Right.
I'm like, now I'm able to A and B, like, well, which do I think came out better? What am I feeling?
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I, was kind of trying to steal from, when Jason Corbett from Actors had said to me that he starts a lot of times with the bass line because it
Yeah.
forces you not to overthink the other stuff.
Right.
You're
Right.
not thinking in major, you're not thinking in minor, you're not thinking in did I use this chord before? Because
Right.
you
Right.
put multiple chords to that
You can
note
do
too.
A7 or A7,
Yeah,
regular
yes. Is
suspended.
is the seven suspended? And I'm like,
Hit a fucking
suspended
A.
is something that happened in school. I don't know. What are you talking?
Yeah, yeah. Just hit an A a bunch of times, see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just open notes and you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Uh,
surprisingly tough to do when you have to switch that. I've done
mhm.
that, or I've gone through phases too. I'm like, all right, I gotta do some like New Order or Curious type song I want to write, and the whole thing would be based on the bass line, and I'm just like, dum 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 dum, and you're like, but now it's gotta be super catchy and awesome too. I'm like, yeah, it's just a weird switch that when you're used to just sitting down and strumming those chords and just that's how it would flow out a lot of times.
Yeah, well, what I've been finding is, and this is why my my new project barely has any guitar in it. I mean, it has some, but
Mm,
what I find is when I was starting to write or I was picking up my guitar and I was sitting down, I was just always gravitating to the chords that I love to play or the way that they sound
yeah,
or the comfortableness of how something sounds instead. And it was like it was kind of stunting the writing process for me, you
yeah,
know? I was like, "No, but I just wanna play this because it sounds so nice, but I've already
right,
used this in a song before, so I can't go back to it," but I'm like,
yeah,
"But I like this, and I could just sit there and play this while I'm watching TV, and I love it," you know? So, I've kind of, taken a step back from that, but, it's the instrument that I first really picked up, you know?
yeah,
Um, I mean, no, not true. I think I took a shot for a very brief time playing clarinet because like
okay,
my
yeah,
uncle had one and like it was like I wanted to do something musical in school and
uh,
going to a smaller Christian school, I didn't really have too many options.
right.
There wasn't a lot of funding there, like
It's like flute or clarinet. Like,
pretty
ah,
much, I think even the recorders we had to buy ourselves, you know what I'm saying? Like
uh,
Uh,
yeah,
so my mom had guitars and we had a piano in the house. And I think piano was a little too much for me to dive into. I think I tried to,
yeah,
but I think there was too much teaching involved and in the aspect of being a kid and letting your mom teach you.
yeah,
But the guitar was there, the guitar was cool. By that time I had kind of discovered and come across, when I was a kid, like seeing Elvis Presley on television, in his movies and how dynamic he was.
yeah.
Um, and then there was all those images of him with his acoustic, and I'm like, wait, but he still was able to kick ass with an acoustic.
Right.
So then it was like, Mom, I want to play this. Teach me chords. Show me this. So that's when she taught me Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan because it's, D, A, and G. Like
Yeah.
the ultimate three chords
Well,
that where we could probably spend 3-4 hours talking about songs that are just in with
uh,
those three chords. I mean, some of the greatest songs ever written.
uh,
Might be the ultimate trio of guitar chords.
yeah, that was my
um
first one too, but not Blowing in the Wind was D-A-N-G there for Confetti, the Lemonhead song.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's it, D-G and A.
yeah, and then you got fancy and sometimes you threw a C in there,
Yeah,
like
getting crazy.
and woo! So it was yeah, and that's what I did with Elvis, my son, when he wanted to learn guitar. It was like, well, here's one chord, this is the easy one. Here, play in, E,
Mhm.
and then it was like, next week I'll teach you another one. This is G,
Yeah,
and I was like, nail those two, and then I'll show you another one. And
yeah,
those were ones that put together. Um, so it's one of those things where uh I mean, I wish I dove into the piano because you can really do everything with it. Now I am messing with, keyboards and
yeah,
pianos and stuff, and at 44, kicking myself in the ass for not.
yeah,
Um, but I just have that ear for it. Some people are technically trained and insanely creative. Some people just it naturally comes out, and I think there has to be something in there, to for it to really kick off. Like
yeah.
sometimes it's one of those things you either have or you don't,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, it's crazy when people are, like, are really good songwriters too, and then they're just really slow with it, and that's super cool and fine too, as long as it gets it out there. But at the same time, some people just really slave over a song too, or you just crank them out and then fine tune them, or just move on to
Right.
another one, and there's so many different layers of all that even. But yeah, it's pretty cool, just that idea of you either have it or you don't too.
Yeah.
It's just or wanting to. I mean, I think a huge part of it for me was being such like a fan of listening to music, and a lot of it was like I'm bored with all the albums I have right now, so I wanted to write a song because I I ran out of
Yeah.
music I wanted to listen to, so I'm going to create a song, and that was kind of a fun way to do it. I'm like, well, what do I want to hear? And I'm like, all right, well, let's do this. Just rip off like a New Order song or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it was
Now,
like
now,
crazy.
what music do you currently have out? Let's talk about
um
your music.
oh, okay, mine, geez, yeah, so that's kind of the thing too, is I really got into the recording aspect, everything from the old 4-track tape recorders I got initially early on, and then when the digital recorders came out, I love those. So I've been kind of getting those all along, and then obviously like Pro Tools and the Garage Band. Now I'm stuck with Garage Band, unfortunately, at the moment. I need to change that up. It's killing me. But at the same time, for music anyway, it's fine for
Yeah.
podcasts. But yeah, so I got this thing going like by about 2000 even. I put like a batch of songs that I called albums, even though they're just home recording batches, but I've put one
Yeah.
out every year like since. So I've got like
Wow.
20 of them at least. So my Bandcamp page is just packed full of stuff. And a lot of them are just like a solo acoustic stuff. And then I'd get into like when I started getting into Wilco more and stuff, I'm like, if I just put this weird noise behind an acoustic song, it sounds cool. So I'd be like just strumming a song, and I just
Yeah.
little radio noises and stuff. And you put that
Yeah.
behind it with a few harmonies, and it sounds cool. And then at times they'd get a little more, you know, layered, and then I'd splurge and go to the studio and do a full album. So there's a fancy one in there, and then there's a few I did with bands, and then throughout the years, it's always been kind of like that, where some I'll get more elaborate with drum machines and stuff. But there's about at least 20, I guess, on there, 22 now. I took 1 year off just because I needed to break the chain, just because I
Right.
didn't want to have to do this out of obligation for the rest of my life. But then the next year I
Yeah, it's
put
a
two
higher
out. So
standard. Oh, did you? Ah, there you go.
yeah, at the same time, it was just like, like I said, I'm not saying they're great or anything, but there's a lot out there. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
What's
I got
the
tons
last
of.
thing you did? Have you done one this year yet?
Yeah, let's see. This year's been kind of weird near the end here and through COVID. I had a batch of like drums that I was doing with my live band, Junk Drawer. And so we finally, and those were our whole idea, was that these were older songs of mine that we kind of cherry picked from all those old ones. And then we worked them up for our live shows. And then finally, right before COVID, I recorded all the drum tracks just in a room. They're like super lo-fi, like drum
Yeah.
tracks. But then I would layer them up like we were live again. So I finally finished all that, and it's a whole batch on there. There's a Junk Drawer album. And then I just did another home recording batch. Some have drum machines, some are just solo acoustic. That one's my most recent, just Gavin Connor one. And then the project that's been really cool and I've been focusing on is called Bear Wallow. That's my brother-in-law up in Pennsylvania, and we've known each other forever now at this time, it seems. And he's like a really awesome musician, and he's really gotten into production stuff. And he during COVID just kind of sent me some songs that didn't have any vocal melodies or anything. They're just like instrumental tracks basically. And he's like, can you do anything with these? I was like, yeah, that's the fun part, man.
Yeah, totally.
And like you
Yeah.
were saying earlier, the idea of stirring up just how you write is so key, and that was awesome because I could just play frontman that has no music ability really, or I was just like, no, I'll play my like singer dude that's just picking where to come in and where to come out, and I'm probably doing it in all the wrong spots that he thought it would. But I think we got some really cool stuff. We put out an EP early this year, and we got
Yeah,
5
yeah. I
more
was
that
digging it for
coming
sure. It
out.
was really good.
Yeah, and he's really good with the production stuff. So it's been cool just to hear my voice on something that actually has been, I rush everything too much. I'm just like, here they are. I hit record, and the songs are out there. If somebody wants to pay me to redo a fancy version, then by all means I'll do it. But I'm not gonna dwell
Yeah.
on it. Let's move on,
Yeah, I've been there, man. I think I think that's most of my
uh,
stuff too.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to the day that I can kind of get back into like going to a studio and doing stuff,
yeah,
where I can like kind of let someone else do that and I can just focus on the creative, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, and there's so many layers with the production too. Like, how far do you want to take it, and sit there and really, fine tune every little effect and everything, and I'm just kind of like, throw some reverb on it, we're good to go.
Yeah,
So,
I'm so funny too because I'm on like double sides. Like either sometimes I like one side, I love that stripped down, just an acoustic, just a vocal,
yeah,
kind of sounding live, but with it, like you said, with reverb, so it's like a big room, like very like personal and creepy,
yeah,
or I'm like, I want to create every freaking sound I can think of and put it in the background. And in one
yeah.
ear, I want to have this. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to yell in the back corner and turn this mic up and see what that, you know, I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, oh, where am I? I
Yeah,
just,
sounds like you have that struggle with me too, where you love like a solo acoustic song, but we have that Cure heart in us now, where you can't help but being like, if this had like 40 keyboard strings going, and
yeah,
you're always
exactly.
just kind of wanting to just pile these huge epic layers of everything on there. But I'm like, no, and and a lot of it boils down to if it's a good enough song. I always say, if it's a fucking good song, then you could just play it on acoustic guitar and everybody's happy. But
Right.
sometimes it is fun just to take a mediocre song and see if you can make it cool by putting an extra guitar part in there, putting the loops in there.
Yeah.
And it
Uh-huh.
works sometimes. Yeah, you can put enough lipstick on a pig sometimes to make it decent. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a cool song now, but it's not really the writing that's shining so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll get into some of that as we start hitting our top 5 lists, kind of talk
Yeah,
about like why we like some of these songwriters that we're going to mention, and kind of what kind of impact we feel they've had on us musically and just music in general. So I figure we'll kick it off. We'll go back and forth. Um did you rank yours from 1 to 5 or
no, I just
no?
kind of have five that, yeah, just
Okay. All right.
thinking enough just getting five. I was like, oh, but what about that guy? Oh, what about that
I know.
girl?
Same. Well, we're so let's do this. First, I
Yeah.
want you to give me a couple of your honorable mentions that didn't make your list, but are
Mm.
definitely high impact for you, or
Well,
that
I
you
guess,
feel the need to get mentioned.
yeah, let's see. Well, I guess the struggle and how I justified it was with the asterisks of where I love songs by bands a lot, like New Order and Smiths and stuff, or Echo and the Velvet Underground and stuff, where I'm like,
Mm.
we can rule them out because they're more like kind of bands. And if they're
Right.
older, like Velvet Underground or something, we're like, all right, cool, cool. So let's strip those away. So I kind of made it more as like, if the person one has a solo album at some point, whether they played in bands, and is known for maybe the occasional just playing an acoustic show. So they kind of had to do that. Wilco was the tough one. I wanted to put them in
Okay.
because Jeff Tweedy's one of my favorite songwriters for sure. He's played solo acoustic stuff all the time, has solo albums. So technically, I think I could have made him fit, but I feel like they're pretty well known and loved. So we'll pass on Jeff
Yeah.
Tweedy for this batch, but he is a huge influence and just an amazing songwriter. So, and then like the oldies of Graham Parsons was huge to me as a kid,
Right.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
realizing that country was cool. And I grew up, in a time of like Kenny Rogers or Garth Brooks. I'm like, what country?
Yeah.
Ugh.
No,
Like,
but those old school outlaw guys are
oh yeah, once I kind
the
of
best,
backtracked,
man.
and yeah, because like I said, I grew up with more synth pop British stuff, and then I got into those kind of 90s pop rock dudes that would cover like a Graham Parsons song. I'm like, well, what is that? That's a cool country song. And Graham Parsons plus a few heartbreaks later, you're like all of a sudden like Hank Sr. and George Jones, like, oh, these are amazing. What is this?
Yeah.
I can't stop writing country songs at that point. So I guess along those lines, and Evan Dando I'd have to include, but there is sort of a link into one of my guys through that. But he's not the most prolific dude, and has a lot of songwriting things I think are really funny workarounds his laziness to songwriting. So, but as a kid and an influence, he was very pivotal even on the song. He covers a lot too. So if you're boiling it down to songwriting, have to
Right.
go
Yeah.
on these other artists. So
All right, cool. So let's start with your number 5 first,
sure.
and
Yeah, we'll just well, I guess since I kind of segued into it, there's this semi obscure artist, I guess, and his name's Tom Morgan. He's a songwriter for the band Smudge officially, and they were like mostly a 90s rock band, but his deal was they're the Aussie equivalent to the indie version of the Lemonheads when Evan Dando was full on punk in the early days, and they toured in Australia. he met Tom Morgan, and that's when they became like songwriter buddies and wrote like Shame About Ray and pretty much,
Oh,
80%
nice.
of Come On Feel the Lemonheads. He wrote Outdoor Type, if anybody's familiar with this. So a lot of times Evan would just take his songs from Smudge even and do like a more slick production and stuff. So he was definitely key in the Lemonhead success, but just also spawned into all these billion Half a Cow label bands in Australia that, through Ben Lee was like subcategory of them, and Nick Dalton that ran Half a Cow Records. But yeah, Tom Morgan is just amazing because you have like the full on 90s rock version of these songs
Yeah.
that were very Lemonheads-esque, but at the same time, they're a little like dirtier and stuff, so you could get like
Yeah.
kind of where they rocked it out. But he has like a later solo album that's a little less 90s feeling if anyone wants to check that out. Yeah, I brought them since we got the visual components here. Yeah, I got
Nice.
this solo album, Orange Syringe, that came out. It's getting
Oh,
pretty old
okay.
now, but and Manilow is probably the best Smudge album, if anybody, I don't know if you can see that, but
Nice.
but
Nice.
yeah, it's just great. Like wordplay is kind of his thing, and they're not
Oh,
like the
okay.
most emotionally deep songs necessarily, but like and it kind of touches on another artist on my list, but he'll just take like catchphrases and stuff and things you hear all the time and kind of twist them. He has lines like "Don't rain on my charade," and the whole song "Outdoor Type" is just this kind of like funny but not like goofy song. They have like good
Right.
humor to them, but they're not like yuck songs or anything. And he has a song called "Shoot First," ask Christian Slater, where they probably and
That's good. That's good.
so yeah, a lot of just cool stuff like that. And it's not the tracks, it's where they're leading, so it's just kind of these kind of dark songs too, where you can tell that he's been through some shit, but at the same time they're fun songs, and they're
Yeah.
kind of, a lot of them are
I'm a
easy.
I'm a sucker for good wordplay and songwriting.
Yeah, I
You
think
know.
that the common thread through all my favorites here is they all kind of, that he's kind of missing the like super. I've never really get sad and put on Smudge or Tom Morgan stuff,
Yeah.
but he's fun, and I always, anytime I pick up an acoustic guitar, there's a part of me that wants to hope some kind of Tom Morgan-esque feel comes out of it. So
Cool.
yeah,
All right, so I'm gonna drop my quick little honorable mentions. This was kind of tough
okay,
to narrow them down to 5.
yeah,
Um, so like here, one of my honorable mentions, only because it's been a more recent discovery for me, and he doesn't have a deep catalog, so I couldn't really justify rocking him up on that top 5 list. But Arlo McKinley,
okay,
um, he is from a singer-songwriter from Ohio, a little more country-esque, a little more like outlaw, but he's got just an amazing voice and just such a great like he, not quite necessarily like storyteller, but
yeah,
sometimes there's the difference like in those songwriters where they tell like a particular story where no one's put into it, but he's more of that like I'm telling you my story. And
right,
it's okay. Like, like
yeah,
they're a little more first person. Um and he's got a record should be coming out shortly. He's been touring all over the place, just building steam. My daughter and I did a cover of one of his songs, which I think is up on my YouTube channel, called "I've Got Her." But yeah, he's great, and like as his career goes, he could make a list for me at some point. But I
yeah,
have to mention him.
promising, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Also a Canadian artist that I discovered many, many moons ago when um, Fuse TV was Much Music back in the day,
okay, yeah, I remember this.
which is Matthew Good.
Okay, yeah,
So he had what was called the Matthew Good Band,
right,
um, and he he's great. What a great songwriter. I got to see him live like 15, 16 years ago, once at the Mercury Lounge in New York City. And it was like, it was really, really good. My
is he the
buddy,
Apparitions or something.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Apparition.
really good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was he's got this such like deep, like awesome vibrato to his voice, and it's like
yeah,
he's
yeah.
yeah, it's like we won't, we won't blame him for being Canadian, because I'm starting to love some Canadian people and
Yeah.
stuff.
Good people.
Also, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Austin Lucas, who is a phenomenal songwriter. Um, he is a former punk rock kid, but grew up kind of in the Midwest with country music and stuff, and was kind of always torn in between the punk rock and the singer songwriter. And
Yeah,
but even his most country singer songwriter has this like its roots in like fuck you punk, and I love it.
yeah.
And he is just also just one of the fucking best, most loving, awesome human beings ever. So shout out to Austin Lucas. And then also this was a tough one for me, but I think because I love his band a little bit more than I love his solo stuff, I felt I couldn't throw him in my top five, but that's Jeremy
Mhm.
Enoch of Sunny D Real Estate.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
he's phenomenal solo, but Sunny Day is in my top
Yeah.
10 favorite bands ever, and such an influence to me. So had to give a shout out to Jeremy Enoch.
Right
Um,
on.
but number five on my list is going to go to City and Color, which is Dallas Green,
Okay.
um, formerly of the band Alexis on Fire. So he was more known in the like, you know, emo, screamo, hardcore scene. At least his,
Right on.
his band was. But he was always the guy that had the amazing voice in it, but it had all this other stuff. And then he started doing his acoustic stuff after the band kind of was not really a full-time band anymore. And he I think it's funny because where I discovered him is one of my oldest best buddies, Chris Coots, who's been tattooing me for like a million years.
Mhm.
Um, he sent me a YouTube video of Dallas covering Nutshell by Alice in Chains. And it was like,
Wow.
and I was like, what the fuck? And I had to go I'm like, I need to find this guy's music. And then I realized who he was. And I'm like, oh, wow. I remember being at shows that band was playing, but I never really paid attention to them too much.
Uh,
Like my friend's band, The Sleeping, would be on tour with them, but I'd mainly be hanging out with The Sleeping
right.
in the dressing room until The Sleeping played. So I didn't
Uh,
really pay attention to the other bands, and I,
yeah.
kind of missed out on that train. He then even just got recognized so much for his songwriting that he ended up doing some stuff with Pink,
Hmm.
like because she was super into what he was writing and stuff, and it was called. They did a little. It was a live EP. It was them live called "You and Me."
Yeah. Well.
Uh, but I got to see him this year um in New York City, and he freaking blew me away alive. Just him at a guitar. Just guy can belt it out. He's just phenomenal. So his
Huh.
project is called City in Color, Dallas Green. He's my number five.
Okay. City and Killer. Is Dallas Green his name or?
Yes.
Cool.
And colors like the knot is the fancy way to do it with the
The
U.
UK with the U. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
Nice.
you know what? He's also Canadian. What's up with this
Ah,
Canada thing going on?
the Canadian invasion is happening.
It is.
Awesome. Cool. Should I pop on another one then? Let's
Yeah.
see.
What's your
All
give me a
right.
number four?
Next, I guess, since they're not really in order, and going back to something you said, I'll go with Lucinda Williams is a huge one for me. She writes a lot of story songs, which country music definitely tends to tread that line where it's more dangerous for relating to it because they're telling you every little part of the she walks into the bar and
Yeah, yeah.
like, all right, so they're just
And the
telling us
cat was on the table, and you're like, oh wow,
yeah,
you really paint the
yeah, yeah.
picture.
So when you're yeah, see, she'll paint the picture, and that's what I love about it too. And just an amazing songwriter, especially most people wrote like Car Wheels on a Gravel Road is their main go-to for her, but I love the self-titled one, which I think came out right before that. and yeah, just tons of like really beautiful, pictures she paints in the words, and they're all like songwriter wise just amazingly simple songs that she'll just blow your mind still when she's even putting out newer stuff. It's like, how on earth are you writing this beautiful song with G, C, and D still? It's really
Right. Yeah.
inspiring.
Well, that's what I'm
It's
saying.
like,
Sometimes I'm like, I'll be like, I'll go to learn a song and I'm like, oh, it's those chords that I've used a million times, but you made
yeah,
it sound amazing.
totally.
Damn, I hate you.
Yeah, she's just amazing that way, and yeah, and yeah, she's got a super cool voice. She's getting up there now and older, so but she's still great live show, and I just was a huge influence early on, in particular, just really trying to get into songs like that, and like the way she could paint an image is just amazing. Yeah, Nights Too Long, Side of the Road is one that's just like any like you know the female mind kind of song where she just stops the car and gets out and stands in a field and looks at shit, and like where any dude's like, what is happening, but this is like the glimpse into like, oh, okay, I totally get it. But so yeah, it's a great song, and Metal Firecracker is a great one too, where she can throw a line like, so we listen to ZZ Top and turn them up real loud. It's like,
Oh,
what?
that's a
Where did that come from? So yeah, she's just great. So she's always been a staple for me. But what about
cool.
you? What you got next?
I have another one. It's funny because I got to see three people on this list live this year so far, um, which has been awesome because we didn't get live music for so
Yeah.
freaking long. But I'm gonna go with Mr. Brian Fallon, lead singer also of the Gaslight Anthem, who made an announcement in March that they are back together as a band and they will be touring and doing a new record, which I was pretty excited about. Um, I love the Gaslight Anthem, like love, love. And when Brian kind of started doing solo stuff, the first record he did was called The Horrible Crows.
Okay.
Um, and I liked it, but I didn't love it because I think it was a little bit more band-esque and it was um I was still mentally trying to separate him from the Gaslight Anthem.
Yeah.
So I listened to it, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Then when he dropped his next solo record that was just Brian Fallon, um, I went back and got into it and it was like hooked right away. Uh, he's now, I think, oh God, he's got maybe 4 solo records out now,
Cool.
and it's
They all
sometimes
still
I
sound pretty different from Gaslight Anthem. Like,
yes, yeah,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually
very
cooler when that happens because it's like it's almost weirder when a dude goes solo from a band and it just sounds like the band, but not with the guys
yeah,
you're used to hearing play. It's just like
totally.
it's
Because even this last time that I saw him, he did play with a band, and I kind of got a little more nervous, and I was like, oh, I think I want to just see him with a guitar, so I'm not trying to like feel those vibes. But
yeah,
the songs definitely they have their own life and they have their own legs, and it's funny because I was saying it about Jeremy Enoch trying to separate the two, but
yeah,
Brian Fallon's solo stuff, I think why I gravitate towards it a little bit more is it's because it's a little more like I write and kind of things along those lines, and even just lyrically, he's always mentioning stuff like that's just a little more I guess I relate to in a different way.
yeah,
It's he's kind of always had that blue collar feel to him, I guess being from Jersey and him being like a big Springsteen fan, so
yeah,
there's always that you know one of his songs like Forget Me Not, it's just like he sings about like the radio being cranked up and those good times in the summer and hanging under the tree. You know what I mean? Like just super fucking relatable, like good shit. And through COVID, um, he definitely helped me get through the lockdown with all the live stuff he was doing on his Instagram.
Oh,
He was
cool.
one of the first people doing it. He was playing
Yeah,
almost once a week or interviewing somebody and just kind of like really personally connecting to people. And I know I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but there was just something about it, and he was great. The set list was great. I just it gave me chills, and he killed it with a band. And I'm stoked that the Gaslight Anthem is going to be doing their thing again, because again, it does have enough legs where they really do stand separate enough for
yeah.
me. So
It's great when
Brian
they can keep
Fallon,
both of
shout
them
out to him.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. When both of them can go, and I love putting on both of them. I mean,
Yeah, it's like
it's a
double.
win-win-win.
Yeah,
Like it's just
totally. Yeah, I totally agree. That's cool. Yeah, I guess next on mine, dude, it's a little more maybe obscure too, but Bobby Bear Jr. I'm not sure how familiar people might be with him.
yeah.
He was in a band called just Bear Jr. in the 90s. They had like kind of an almost hit with "You Blew Me Off" was on the Varsity Blues soundtrack or
Oh,
something.
really?
It
I
was
don't want your life.
yeah, yeah. I think they got like to play on Conan because of that or something, but then
Right, yeah.
then it all fizzled out. But so yeah, somewhere around the early 2000s, he started doing solo albums, and he's just a character in himself too, where he's obviously son of Bobby Bear, who's the 70s legend that I didn't realize, a country music guy. Like he's in like
Mhm.
country music hall of fame and everything. Just had tons of hits. It was just kind of, he was like one of the ones that always talked the third verse, and put in
Right,
there.
yeah.
She was walking, and yeah, so he's still his son, but so yeah, he put out these kind of like, but he's like a big Pixies fan and stuff, and
Okay, that's cool.
into like these kind of like more indie rock stuff, but it always has like this country flair to it. And his first solo album was the one that totally just blew me away. It's called Young Criminal Starvation League. Looks super cheap. It's like looks like you made it at like disc makers or something. Just
Yeah.
like a horrible album cover.
Went to Kinko's,
Yeah,
photocopied
it's
it.
like just like yeah, cropped terribly, but so good. It's just got a million, like the first track on it, I'll Be Around, is like one of the most beautiful, cool songs I feel like ever written. Where it's just like the classic, like you left me, but when you're feeling shitty, I'll be around. It's like when you're afraid
Right.
to cry because you're not sure what's inside, I'll be around. And when it's like when it's late at night and you want somebody to fight, I'll be around, kind of thing. It's just like
Oh, that's
great
cool.
like lines where it's just, he's one of those dudes too. It's just like, like a lot of these are just these heart-wrenching songs, he'll like just do the saddest fucking song, but then the next one will either be like super fun and rocking or like kind of funny, like
Mm.
there's a song like I'll be your adorable beast, and it's from the perspective of a dog, like carrying around a dog. You'll rub my nose in it when I mess up and stuff, but yeah, like if you're not paying attention, you don't realize it's about a dog. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of just really clever kind of country songwriting with it. But he's somebody we've seen live over the years too, and even my buddy here that I played bands with, like his band opened for him and got him to come back to the house when we first came to
Oh,
Asheville. He
really?
partied with us. We told him we had a place for him to crash, and there's like no fucking place to crash. That's
Oh
like the
my.
worst move. So he just got like annihilated and sang Pixie songs on the couch and passed out. And they went into the van later. But it was just like everybody was just like partying with him, and it was so weird but awesome, And
Yeah.
he was a good sport about it. Yeah, and I've gone to see him a bunch of times. It's just like he'll do those like house party, where somebody actually pays to have him come, but it's like a
Yeah.
small house party acoustic
Uh,
thing, and they're always really awesome, and he's just fun. But yeah, like early on he would play with bands a lot, and they would get where he'd just get annihilated, sometimes a little too trashed, and it would just turn
yeah.
into this ultimate rock thing that was cool. But when you see him solo acoustic, that's really when he shines, because he just has
Mm.
this very unique voice too, where he can just sing really low and then just be like, it gets kind of Pixies-esque, and it's
Yeah.
really good. And he just does so many classic songs that, just in preparation for this, I started putting a bunch on. I was like, oh yeah, that song. Oh yeah, that song. And and just say like so many good lines. Like he has this one, "If She Cared," that's a beautiful like song. It says, if she cared where I was, then we wouldn't be doing what we're about to do. And it's like this whole like kind of
Oh wow.
country song of, yeah, like the cheating's about to happen, but it's all like, but if she cared, this wouldn't be happening, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should be a national treasure. He's just got these big curly hair too. He just comes in, he's like, "Hi guys." He's like
Looking like a Muppet or something.
yeah, totally.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Well, I
Yeah.
think what we definitely need to do too is we'll each grab like 2 songs from each of everyone on our list. And
Yeah, I'm jotting them down here. It'd be
we'll
cool.
put a playlist together.
Awesome.
Um, so I mean, so next time I come to Asheville, can I play in your house, get wasted,
Yeah.
and crash? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
It's mandatory at this point.
Yeah. All right. So next
This was
on.
my friend's house, though. I never would have invited that
Oh,
guy to my
you're like,
house.
"Oh, I'm not
I
having
just
this."
invited him to my friend's house.
Are you still friends with that guy?
Yeah, he's my
Okay.
best bud up the road. Yeah.
Okay, good. I was like, was it Donald? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh, and Bobby Bear plays in Guided by Voices now. He's like their rhythm guitarist. He's just was like,
Really?
yeah. So now he's like touring around all over with them, playing as their rhythm guitarist. He just got in with them, and so
Oh
it's like,
shit.
wow. So it's good.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So he's got like a. He always seemed like he was struggling a bit more than he should be, like the son of a rich country icon, you know.
Yeah,
Poor
yeah.
dude just never seemed to really get more momentum with his fan base or anything, too, you know.
Oh no,
But
that's good. That's cool.
yeah, it's
I
cool
think
getting
that.
out there and doing that. So
All right, my next one, number 3 for me would be oh wow. I just realized I missed a big one. Ooh.
yeah.
Wow. I Yeah. Oh man. So it was about to be Elliott Smith,
Okay.
but I forgot to put the fucking almighty Jeff Buckley on here.
Uh-uh.
Sorry, Elliot, you're getting bumped, and it is Jeff Buckley. I mean, it's well, God, they're both.
Merge them together. Yeah,
I
since
know.
they
I
both
was just
got
gonna say
cut short.
they're also both left the world too soon with not
Yeah.
enough music.
So can count as one. So.
But I mean, both those guys were very influential to me. And Jeff Buckley just, I mean, when sometimes I get more depressed thinking about all the music we've missed out on by him being gone than anything else. But I think where I think he, for me, bumps up a little bit above Elliott Smith is Elliott Smith's stuff is like, you know, I mean, bottom of the barrel, suicidal, which is fucked up to say because he did die by suicide.
Yeah.
But you could hear it in his lyrics. But what I loved about Buckley is he sometimes his voice almost transcended music, if that makes any sense. The way that he could go from a whisper to the one of the loudest falsettos you've ever heard, and also what really made him stand out from other songwriters, even especially in New York City, in these like, you know, clubs that you didn't know what they were, but all the record executives knew to go there because the good shit was popping out. But he would play solo shows with his electric, not an acoustic.
It's cool.
And it was just something very different that not a lot of people could really pull off. And sometimes I kind of wonder to myself, and I think about like, what would this song sound like on an acoustic?
Yeah.
You know, like wait in the fire, wait, you know, and I'm like, it almost needed to be electric with the way that he sang.
Sure.
It was almost it needed to be that way, you know, and
guitar a notch too, yeah, because it wasn't gonna it would just leave like an acoustic guitar in the dust too much, you know.
Yeah, and then it would just be too like blah.
Yeah.
So I definitely think and I don't know if he did it intentionally, and I would love to know, like, dive into like the why on that one. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe it's just as simple as he liked the way that it felt better to play them like
Yeah,
string wise and neck wise. But I mean, the guy just wrote some of the most beautiful songs that have ever been written. His voice was just fucking godly. I mean,
yeah,
his version, of Hallelujah, which is most people know, even though he didn't write it, um, has just, you know, consistently through the years always re-pops back up
yeah,
and hits somewhere in the charts, whether it's from a movie or from, I think I think American Idol had them cover it like
yeah.
12, 13 years ago, and all of a
I was gonna
sudden,
say it's one
like,
of those ones when people cover it, they're covering his version of it or trying to.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
And,
or trying to.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing when people are trying to cover your cover, there's there's something pretty special and amazing
yeah,
there.
you've taken it to the next.
Yeah, and it's just funny too because, as those of you that follow me on social media, just picked up both those records within like 2 weeks of each other on vinyl, like
Nice,
at
yeah,
my
it's cool.
local record spot. So I was pretty pumped about that.
Yeah. Did he
So
have just the one record? Was there another Jeff
the two,
Buckley? Was
yeah,
there a second one?
Grace, yeah,
Okay, yeah, I
Grace,
only had
and
the
the
one.
sketches
Damn.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, those are and then he's got the live at Shanae, and
Okay.
Shanae is this tiny little club in the Village in Manhattan. That's like,
Okay.
when I think about, like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, you could like just roll up to Shanae and Buckley was playing. You know
Yeah,
what I
that's
mean? Like,
crazy.
God, I think I don't even know how many people. Like, I'd be shocked if 100 people jammed in that room. Like,
Right.
so it's just like
Such a short
crazy.
window. Yeah, it seemed like he was just all the buzz, and then it was like
And then he
that's
was
it.
gone and
Yeah, that's just
doing and gone
totally.
recording that his next record too. He was
Yeah, it's just
in the
total
middle of
James
it.
Bean factor. It's just like,
Yeah.
God, what the sad. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they both were gone way too soon, and like, Buckley was an accidental death, like drowning.
Yeah.
And Elliott Smith unfortunately did take his life, but
Yeah.
and Buckley's stuff, although there was like sad stuff in there, there was also like beautiful love songs, and I think that's what kind of I think makes him stand out too. It's harder to write a beautiful love song because everybody understands heartbreak
Yeah.
more than they understand true love, because there's some people that still haven't found true love.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's different for everyone. So it's like,
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, I mean, I God, I was saying that to Melissa, like, after we met and got together, it was like one of the first times I was like, wow, thank you. I got to write like a positive love song. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've spent so many years writing the sad, sappy shit,
Right.
you know? So she jokes
Yeah.
around all the time. She's like, oh, do I have to like break up with you for a little while just
Right.
so we can help you write a new song? I'm like,
Uh,
nah, I'm too old for that.
yeah. I still channel the old misery. That's right.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, let me go back to a breakup from 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's not that it means anything. It's just I remember how crappy that felt. That's what I was telling
Exactly.
my friend. He's all like, I'm like, read some sad songs again. He's like, but I'm happy now. I don't want to write sad shit. And I'm like, well, you remember how horrible it was, right? You can still you can
Hey
just get
man,
back into it, man.
our boy Robert Smith is
Exactly.
still with his first love, but he can write some fucking heart wrenching.
I think that's where I always stem it back to. It's like if that dude could get that miserable big with his childhood sweetheart, then I
Yeah.
could dig up, peel a few little scabs off and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
All right.
awesome.
You're up.
All right, let's see who's up next. I got let's go with Paul Westerberg of the Replacements, which almost feels like it shouldn't count. Or is he too old? Or, nah, he's putting out shit still.
Yeah,
But I'm
yeah,
leaning
he's
towards,
still pretty relevant.
yeah, let's see. But I was leaning towards obviously the Replacements are mandatory for every music fan out there.
Yeah.
just great songwriting, whether you like the punky stuff or the later poppier stuff, it's all golden, really. Can't go wrong, especially just songwriting wise. I think that's what his deal was in that band, was that his songwriting just started to get so good that it just didn't work in a formerly punk band or whatever. It's like, these
Yeah.
are just getting good. I gotta make like this. And I think so many of those like alt country bands that I love, they owe it all to stuff like Aching to Be. And I mean, that's like
Mm,
a fucking Wilco before Wilco at that point. It's like
yeah.
those songs are just amazing on Don't Tell a Soul and stuff. And and I feel like maybe on this I'll lean even towards his solo stuff. He definitely has a few misses on his like Dyslexic Heart and stuff from the single soundtracks, a little goofy for sure, but at the same time
Yeah.
he's got a lot of good solo gems
That's one of
too.
my
Like,
favorite soundtracks, period. I
yeah,
love
it's
that
it's pretty
soundtrack.
awesome. And even as a kid, I was like big Replacements fan, and that came, I was like, this he's like, nine, nine, and nine, and nine.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man, but I still like it for some reason. It still makes me feel good. And but yeah, I mean, he's just got like every solo album, there's like at least 3 songs that are like just as good as any Replacements gem, that are just so like, perfect. Again, he kind of takes what I love about Tom Morgan and the wordplay, and like takes it to the Hall of Fame level of like, he'll
Yeah.
just turn a catchphrase upside down and make you like, holy shit, it has like triple meanings. It's so good, and it's like, here comes a regular, it's like, I love that song. It's like, is it just somebody a regular at the bar, or is the regular the drink that, hey, you want your
Yeah.
regular
Yeah.
thing? I mean, it could go so
Let
many
me get my
different ways.
regular, sir.
Yeah, he might not even know what the hell, but it just works perfectly. And but the one that really just killed my soul in a great way was, again, early 2000s. A lot of these, because I think early 2000s is when I kind of just embraced songwriting, because I was like, didn't want to deal with bandmates and shit. I was starting to
Yeah.
just really
It's
focus
a
on band.
it's a blessing and a curse, because you
Yeah,
don't have to deal with all that crap. But then again, sometimes when you're in that rut, you don't have anyone to bounce the song off of.
yeah, you just
So
have to
it's
depend on people like Paul Westerberg. So this one, Stereo, is like a underrated gem, and it's a double album because he did his weird grandpa boy thing, which was like his band, I guess, sort of at the time. So there's like a bonus disc of that. But then there's just this amazing home recorded album that was just kind of the like light, when I saw how good like a home recording album could be. This is like what inspired
yeah.
me. I was like, this is, I could do all these. And like the tape machine like cuts off at the end of like songs, like halfway through on some of them, and he's just like, fuck it, that's the song. I was just like, oh,
That's a wrap.
yeah. It's just that perfect Replacements, who gives a shit vibe is still in there. And yeah, I mean, it's just a billion. The Only Lie Worth Telling's like beautiful song, and Boring Enormous. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many good like word plays, and let the bad times roll. I think I have a glitch here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little bit of static, but
Turned into a robot for a minute. But yeah, so yeah, I love that album in particular. It's really good. And he has a song called Silent Film Star that's great. It's just like about a beautiful actress, and she needs to be a silent film star. Keep your pretty mouth shut. It should have been a silent film star, it's a fucking genius. But yeah, so he's just one of the dudes that hopefully everybody's aware of. But give his solo albums a chance, I say to people out there, because I think he definitely has a few duds in the mix there, but a lot of them are really good too. So
nice.
not the usual chord structures too. He'll do some weird like change ups where it sounds like it's just a GCD kind of song, but then when you go to play it, you're like, what the hell is he
You're like, what was he
like doing? Some
playing?
like half chord things where he just like rearranges parts of it and stuff, and he'll just go to some whole weird section, but it all just flows like a pop song. You're like, what
Like,
the
how
hell?
did
So
you
he's
do this?
a little tricky on that part. It makes it a little too hard to cover him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you got?
All right. So this guy that I'm going to mention has written, or produced half the songs on the radio. Um, he has got into the music industry in the 80s hair metal days. Then he was a one hit wonder in the 90s with a pop song. And now, like I said, he's one of the most sought after producers and best songwriters of our time. His solo shit is amazing. His live show is the funnest live show you'll ever go to. And he was my son's first concert, and he actually brought my son up on stage. The one, the only Butch Walker.
Whoa, damn. So you
Yes.
up on stage?
Yes. And
Nice.
anytime we have brought him to see Butch and I would throw him up on my shoulders, Butch would point to him and give him the thumbs up.
Nice.
A few years ago, Elvis messaged him on Instagram, was like, "Hey, do you remember me? Like, you put me up on stage." He's like, "Of course I do. How are you?" Like,
Oh,
that's how like down to earth like he still is.
right.
Um, you know, he had the Marvelous Three in the 90s. They had that hit single Freak of the Week,
Yeah.
that was all over the pop charts. And then, they had that whole dispute with the label where the label was like, we're not going to pump money into you anymore, but you're still going to be on the label. So they kind of had to break up and he had to go his own way just to not be stuck in a contract. Um, did his first solo record, Left of Self Centered, and then just kept going from there. But he started producing bands, and like I think the first like semi big thing he did was Seven Dust on,
Right.
on TVT Records, which really wasn't his cup of tea. But he then, I think the big hit for him was writing Skater Boy, and I think So Much for My Happy Ending for Avril Lavigne.
Right.
And those songwriting credits really got, and that's when he started. I mean, he's written now for like Pink and Bowling for Soup and Weezer, and he's produced Weezer um and just tons of other people. I mean, it's just the lists go on and on. But his solo stuff falls somewhere in between like country singer songwriter and rock god. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, he's got a phenomenal voice. He's a ridiculous guitar player. Sometimes he'll get on the piano or the organ. Um, he just writes about just real life shit, wears his heart on his sleeve, um, and is just can write a catchy chorus like nobody can. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a shocker he's not on number one on my list, but he's teeter tottering with the number one. But like
Hmm.
I said, anybody I've ever like put together a mixtape of Butch Walker stuff for because they didn't know who he was or just
Yeah.
made them go see him live has instantly become a fan.
Nice.
Um, but he's this like cult almost because the songs that he writes, the artists are selling out Madison Square Garden, but he's
Yeah.
playing smaller venues,
Right. Yeah.
and
Which is
and is respected by the music industry, like from the highest up, to the coolest musicians. He did a what is her name? Um Taylor Swift.
okay.
He covered a Taylor Swift song on ukulele once years ago.
Wow.
She saw it and then had him play ukulele on it when she did it live in an awards show
Nice.
because she was like, "That's so cool," uh,
Yeah.
you know. And like I said, now he's written and produced songs for Pink, and like she's like one of his best friends, and they're but he's not arrogant, he's not cocky, he still just loves doing things like just like riding motorcycles
Awesome.
and
Yeah.
and hanging out, just a super down to earth guy. But his songwriting is so influential to me. Has been, he has a song actually called Mixtape, which I have a cassette tape tattooed like on my sternum over here that says Mixtape, like
Nice.
for that song.
Awesome.
Like my son, it was his first concert. He loves his music, and Butch has always been great. Even when COVID started and shit was crazy. It was right around my birthday, and I was a little down and out. A friend of mine reached out to him and was like, "Oh, it's my buddy's birthday, and he's like working through all this stuff, and stuff is crazy." And he fucking sent me a message and was like, "Hey
Oh,
man,
wow.
happy birthday! Like, I know you're busting your ass through all this. Like, I hope you and the family are well." Like, I was like, he's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
in between writing like Grammy award winning songs and producing major label bands, you can just reach out to someone
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
amazing.
going through some shit. So Butch Walker, the
Cool
man.
deal. Yeah, I have to check out the full. He's somebody I've always just kind of been familiar with in the different avenues of all his work. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
and
have
then
to
and
check out the
sometimes
whole scope.
depending which record you grab, it's a little different. And like I said, because sometimes it's like anthem rock godish, and then sometimes it's like stripped down
Yeah.
and you're like and heavy.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Some of
he's
that.
got something for every mood, you
Cool.
know.
Yeah. Kind of love that. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Let's see. Am I down to my last one? I think so.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this matches with anyone on your list, but I had old Ryan Adams on there, so he made my list. So yeah, dude comes with a lot of baggage these days, but I gotta say I love his songwriting, and I think he's been kind of that Cure element where there's a lot of dark times that his shit definitely helped me through, and
Oh yeah.
my buddy that going back to the Bobby Bear story, he lived up in Virginia with me and Donald for like not with me but with Donald actually for maybe like half a year, early 2000, and like just kind of gave me a tape, and it was like Stranger's Almanac, or it was a mix CD of Stranger's Almanac and Heartbreaker had just come out, and
Right.
I was just like, my initial reaction was like, this is so good, but it's kind of cheesy too.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? And I was like giving into like Steve Earle and stuff by that point. But I was just like, yeah. And then just like with each listen, like fell more and more in love with Heartbreaker in particular. And
Oh yeah, that
of
album.
course all the Whiskey Town stuff I love and adore now. But yeah, he's just one of those dudes. It's just like the whole package just hits you right in the gut with his songwriting, and just totally inspired me with the idea of you can take an easy song to put the capo on, do little hammer-ons and spice it up in different ways. And you
Yeah,
don't
for
need to be the
sure.
flashiest guitarist, but you can still just pour feeling into it. And he just, it was just so sincere in that, early stuff in particular. And I just became like diehard fan from about that point on all the way through. I mean, I've, pretty much been into everything. He starts getting into the more rock stuff at times, and that's cool. The other stuff, and then I'll go back to like an acoustic album, and
Yeah.
he's somebody I always just admired because of the prolific side to it, and people give him so much crap about just slow down and put like one good album out or whatever, and he's like, no, here's 20 albums.
Yeah.
Kind of the approach I had, or just like, nah, just get it out, man. People could always just make a playlist of the ones you like or whatever. Let's hear it all.
Yeah, and like yes, there are songs that collectively like people gravitate towards. But then yeah, there are those obscure songs that people love. Like I did finally get to see him play about a
Mhm.
month ago. Um what was it, 36 song playlist or something
Yeah.
crazy like that. And there were songs that he started playing, and I'm like, oh, I know this song. But then people were bugging out like that he was playing it. And I was like, I like that song, but I'm not screaming like a little girl about it.
Yeah.
But that's what's cool. It's like, okay, to
Yeah.
them, it is that song the same way another song is for you.
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, yeah, crank out a shit ton and then that's for them, that's for them, that song's for him, that song's for her,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Yeah. It's so personal. Yeah. Like I feel like everyone could just grab one and attach to it. And that's why I feel like it is almost that Cure kind of level of like the things that you went through to those songs mean something. That song just in particular, like I mean, you can attach to so many of them, because they
Yeah.
are just vague enough to, or they tell the story, and you can, and it's just great songwriting. And he's not reinventing the wheel by any means. I'd get in those arguments with people early on, oh, he's just ripping off the Stones, he's just ripping off this. I was like, yeah, but he's never really claimed it. He's just fanboy. You could tell he's just like uber
Yeah.
nerd music fan too, and I always love that
Oh,
about
he
him, where
is.
he's just like, this is a song, and you just take it. And I was like, well, yeah, I love that. So
So he is also my number one on my list.
awesome. Cool.
Yeah, of course. That guy has like you said, like some of the songs are like a little more full band rock and rolly. Um, some of them are just so sweet. I mean, I always liked him. And then I think when I got the Love Is Hell EP,
Yeah,
that's when I think I fell in love. Like when I was like maybe
yeah,
like
those are great.
20, I was just like, fuck.
Yeah,
I hate you for writing these songs that I feel like I could have written because I
yeah,
feel you on every one of these.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
you had mentioned that earlier too, and I think he totally hit that mark for me where it was like that. Even if it wasn't the full song, where I could be cocky enough to be like, "Damn, I could have written that," it was enough of
mhm.
like, "Oh, that line, I could have said that," it
Yeah.
almost just seemed within your grasp. Where like, if I, just come a little closer, I might have been able to. And I think that's what the charm is that you feel like you could do that, and it's something that,
Yeah, like tell them that this house is not for sale.
yeah,
You know, like
uh,
oh my god. I mean,
Beetlejuice.
yeah, yeah,
Beetlejuice.
exactly.
But yeah, a huge one for him. I wrote down Heartbreakers, the album is the obvious disintegration type one that everybody
Yeah,
loves or
yeah.
whatever. But that career suicide handbook thing, it's an album that never
Oh,
got released, but I'm sure you've
yeah.
heard it out there. And
Mhm.
that thing just like reinvented songwriting for me too. It's just such a heart-wrenching, beautiful batch of songs that like this
Yeah.
the fact that it's an album that never came out, but I
Yeah,
think all of his fans
I
know
used
it.
to have it somewhere because I did like rip it off the internet and I don't
Yeah,
have it anymore. It was on an external hard drive of mine that
yeah,
didn't survive. But I tell you what, man, Prisoner
yeah,
from like when that came out, like 4 years ago or so, 5 years.
yeah. That's a great one too. Yeah, and I'm so happy you rebounded because by the end of the Cardinals stuff, there was that one Cardinalology, I think, like
Yeah, it was a little.
everything was a little like cheesy kind of, and I just was like, yeah, he
Yeah.
might be kind of hitting the bottom, and then like that self-titled one I really loved,
Mhm.
and then Prisoner, yeah, and then the new stuff, it's just like pouring
New
out.
stuff is
He
great, man.
dropped two double albums, just like himself putting them out now or whatever. I don't know what his deal is, but
Yeah, and then he was even doing stuff on his Instagram live where he was writing and recording a song like over a couple day period, like with
yeah, I caught
everybody.
one of those and
Yeah.
heard about them, but
Oh
yeah,
my god, so cool. And just this stuff as simple as that song, like "Fuck the Rain." You know,
yeah, yeah, it's
I
so
think we've
good.
all said that,
Right.
like that actual
Yeah,
phrase. And he was like, "I'm gonna turn it into a song," you know.
sure.
A-
Yeah,
and this last album too is just it's got a lot of like deep stuff. And now that he's now that he's like drug free, like
yeah,
sober and clean and gone through the ringer and everything. And I'm not gonna get into all that other stuff,
yeah,
because it's just all those hot button things and how people feel about stuff. But everybody has stuff that they regret. Everybody has done wrong. Like, it doesn't mean that we shut them down forever. Like
right.
if we don't leave room for people to learn, grow, and bounce back as a society, like, and as humans, then like we're just like, who are we then? Like, we're never gonna evolve. We're never gonna grow,
Yeah, for sure.
and it's very hard with music separating the person from the stuff. And
Art from the
listen,
artist.
like,
Yeah, it's
I
a
wasn't there. I don't know personally. I'm not. I can't be a judge, a jury. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a this or that. I'm just a fan of the music.
right.
And
Yeah, and it's
I
like
can't.
I'm not hanging out with him. I'm listening to the songs, and the songs are great. So
Yeah, yeah,
whatever, it's
yeah. I mean, these songs have talked me down from the ledge in my
yeah,
life multiple times.
yeah.
Um,
And I was
y-
hitting that early on too. Or it's like I felt like I couldn't totally just burn the records or whatever, at the worst of it, because it's like I don't know, man. This dude definitely was there for me when I was at my fucking worst.
yeah,
And putting Heartbreaker on loop and shit definitely saved me a lot. So
yeah.
the
I
least
think
I could
I
do
think the only place I
wait.
draw the line with that stuff is like I won't listen to Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Well, I
You know?
lucked out because I never liked him anyway. So
Yeah, yeah. I think
I
when we
can
talked
act like
about
I'm
that,
like, oh
I
shit,
think
I
we've
don't like
yeah,
him.
we've talked about
Yeah,
this before on the Holy Hour podcast. I think when we did the episode about videos too, it's kind of like
yeah. And
it's like, yeah,
and
it's
that's a
a killer
pretty
video, but
and it's a drastic difference, even whatever level you take with the
yeah,
accusations. It's just that's a pretty big jump between the two. So I mean, it's like it's a
yeah,
yeah. If it would been something like that, it would definitely be a lot harder. But I'm glad it wasn't.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Michael Jackson, I'm like, oh, whatever. Jackson 5 are cool, whatever. But I'm not gonna lose any sleep over that one. But
Cool.
but
So,
yeah,
so what's some music so far that's come out this year that you've been pretty pumped on as we've kind of hit the half
yeah.
mark
I
of
mean,
the
it's
year?
just crazy the fact that it is half way year already. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. But yeah, it's starting to feel like already that it's going to be one of those past couple of years for me. I don't know if everyone's just kind of gearing albums that way, where it tends to be more singles heavy. Where I used to have like huge albums every year, and now I'm kind of like, I don't know, the playlist mix of like so and so had like two good singles and like just a one-off single that was great, and a lot of singles already seem to be the way, in EPs and stuff. But there are a couple albums that I wanted to shout out. They were pretty cool. I was just surprise factor is always nice. Placebo is a band that I had
Yeah, I
like their
love
first couple
placebo.
albums way back when, and then just kind of like, yeah, I'm good. I don't really need to follow them. They've put out a bunch since, but their newest one, Never Let Me Go, like they put out a couple singles by the end of last year, I think, but then the album officially came out this year, and it's pretty rad. The whole thing, just like cool production. The songs are like just lots of cool synth stuff, and it rocks just as like really impressive. That like they're really catchy songs too, and I was like, all
Yeah.
right, cool, because I was, it's always that much more impressive when you weren't expecting to like it. There are a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
bands that, like Wilco, I'm like, I don't know, I'm listening to it because I love them, but is this album even that great anymore? I don't know. Like some you're just
Yeah.
gonna give the extra 20 listens because of their past love. But I was never a huge Placebo fan, but I was like, this album's really fucking good so far. But should I ramble off a couple, or do you want to bounce back and forth on that?
No, no, yeah, just shoot them off, man.
Yeah, just ramble a couple. There's a Canadian girl that I stumbled across. Her name's Gray. She just put out she had put out a couple singles, and it's super poppy, so definitely not for everybody. Somehow I stumbled across her just doing like, it was like a like YouTube playing a song I wrote in my bedroom, and there's like all these Cure posters behind her. So she's like a diehard Cure fan, and it was just kind of a catchy, cool song that caught my ear, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like Gray spelled Grae, and put out a full album, and it has like huge production behind it. So I don't know
Really?
what her connections are or what, but like all of a sudden she's in there. They got her all like kind of glammed up pop star, but there's kind of awesome pop songs like Madonna vein, almost like where I felt like the 80s pop star. It had like a lot more to give than what we're getting these days, where the songs are just
Yeah,
really
for real.
catchy, and it's just like, hate it or not, like this would be the kind of shit that I'd hear on my mom's Casey Kasem countdown, and I'm like making fun of it because it wasn't the cool indie bands that I liked or whatever. But at the same time, I'm
Right.
like kind of tapping my foot to it, and I was like, yeah, man, Bangles amazing, so,
You're like,
something like that, But so I think she's got a little touch of that. So I'm digging her album, which is called Whiplash. And Spoon is another band I was never crazy about, but I
oh
like
wow,
select
Spoon.
songs and albums. And they put out a new one that I'm really digging. The single in particular, called Wild, is really good. And they're coming to Orange Peel here in Asheville, playing a show with Interpol in September. So
Oh, that's
I like
cool.
the album enough to, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's buy it. I've never seen them live. So yeah, that'll be cool. It's called Lucifer on the Sofa. uh, Let's see. Then I got War Paint is a band I really love, and they just put out a new one. Don't like it on first few listens as much as I was hoping I would, but there's definitely a few
Womp
like
womp.
really rad songs on it. Yeah, so I'm still giving it a few more listens, but it's called Radiate Like This. Song Champion is really badass. Yeah, they're just a really cool all-female band, and Jenny Lee on bass, who I should have mentioned on our favorite bassist playing.
Oh yeah.
She's really rad. And Stella Mozgawa, something, I'm pronouncing the last name, but she's the drummer for Warpaint. She does a lot of producing too, and did like Courtney Barnett's last album and stuff like that.
Cool.
So yeah, they're cool. And then I had Ryan Adams' Romeo and Juliet double album self-release.
Yeah,
Just
that's on
really
my list
cool.
too.
That song "Run" is amazing,
Oh,
and
so good.
a lot of them that were a lot catchier than that Chris album he put out this year too, a double album. That
Yeah,
one kind of taking a few more listens, but there's some cool ones on that too. But
yeah,
Romeo
that
and
one,
Juliet all
I
day.
don't know, the first half of that one I love, and then the end of it gets a little, you know,
Yeah,
but
it
the
starts to get into like Oasis syndrome a bit, where I'm like, that's
yeah.
totally one of your songs already, dude. Like the exact same chord progression, and it's just different
Like,
lyrics.
wait
So
a minute.
I'm like, whatever, it's cool. I'm still glad to hear it than not hear it, but at the same time,
Yeah,
so
totally.
yeah, those are probably mine. An EP just came out today, Jenny Owen Young's, which is really rad. I've been following her
Love
for a
Jenny
while.
Owen Young.
Yeah, she's
Love
really
her.
cool. She's been doing a lot of cool stuff throughout the years, and
Mm-hmm.
she just did this EP that came out today where it's 4 songs and they're all based on video games, like inspired by. And they
Really?
had
I'm
like
gonna
the
have to
first
dive
one with the
into that.
Pac-Man song. So like somewhere in it goes like, but then it's just like a really cool pop song. And there's one on like Breath
Huh.
of the Wild, Zelda. And my son was all like, I hear it, I hear it. And it's just like the lyrics are kind of inspired by that, and a Mario one, and
That's cool.
Skyrim, I'm not familiar with, but one of the songs is based on that. But
Huh.
yeah, I forget what the EP is called, but it's the newest one,
It's
and it's a
dangerous to
collaboration.
go alone. Is it that?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Green
Cool.
cover, I think, some kind of green.
Yeah, yeah,
Green.
yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Cool. That's
yeah.
gonna have to
Definitely
go on my
recommend
list.
those. What you got as far as stuff you're
Yeah,
digging?
she's great. Um, let's see. So far this year, White Lies. I don't know if you ever listened to them.
No.
They're like kind of like a, you know, like what are they listed as? I guess a post-punk band. You
Yeah.
know, British bands, very, you know, Killers esque.
Yeah.
Um, they dropped an album, As I Try Not to Fall Apart, this year in February, which is pretty much awesome, like all their fucking records, because I love that band.
Nice.
Um, also, for those of you into, you know, heavier music, um, let's see, what's the name of the album? My buddy Joe Bad sings for a band called Fit for an Autopsy, and they dropped an album called Oh What the Future Holds. And it's just heavy and brutal in the best kind of way.
Nice.
So that's been a record that I've like super been into so far this year. When I am in the mood for heavy stuff, um, I kind of go straight to that. You know, I'm
Nice. Yeah.
like, give it to me. Um, and then you know, it's interesting because, like I said, this year I've gotten a little less in the aspect of discovering like or super into albums that just dropped, but I got to see a lot of bands that I've been getting into live for the first time.
Cool.
So I finally got to see Boot Blacks live this year, saw them with Actors, so finally got to
Okay.
see Actors, which was my album of the year last year. um Also, you know, former guest of the Holy Hour podcast, you know, the Mike from House of Harm.
Yeah.
I'm now will be going to see those guys for the third time this year,
Excellent.
because they're going to be playing in Brooklyn again next week. uh and then finally got to see Soft Kill,
Yeah.
and I liked what I heard from them, and now that I've seen them live, I'm like
Yeah.
100% in. Like, their live show doesn't do like their records justice. Like, they're one of those bands that blew me away live, and their records sound good, but
Yeah.
the intensity they have live, the honesty that they have, has just been like, wow.
Yeah.
Super fucking intense and so good. Shout out to those guys. I mean, just like can't stop listening to them,
Yeah.
for sure. And then what else did I have in my oh, duh. Today, again, like you said, a lot of EPs, a lot of singles and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, Jimmy Eat World dropped a new single today,
Oh wow.
and it is so good. The name of the track, um, I have to look it up because, like I said, it literally dropped this morning.
Nice.
Something Loud.
Okay.
So that is, I listened to that song probably about 5 times today
Yeah.
already.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
it's good when things can get the repeat listens right off the bat again. That Jenny Owen ones
yeah,
when we were just like played it like 5 times in a row. I was like, this is great. It's already just totally burned into my brain, or it's like,
yeah, and for me so far this year too, um, just not from a music standpoint, but entertainment standpoint wise,
it's,
as a Star Wars fan,
yeah,
this year is starting out fan fucking tastic. I mean, uh, I think on my episode about Book of Boba Fett, you guys all heard how I felt about Book of Boba Fett. Liked it, didn't like it as much as Mandalorian, and now Obi-Wan Kenobi is just slaying me in the best kind of way.
yeah, I'm loving
Um,
it.
I don't want to give any spoilers to those who haven't kind of watched it yet, but as a Star Wars fan, it is hitting every little heartstring that I have in my
Yeah,
heart. And I couldn't be happier with kind of where the franchise is going.
yeah,
I'm excited for all the stuff that we're going to be getting coming up. I mean,
there's tons on the
so
horizon.
much. Have you seen the Andor trailer?
Yeah, looks amazing too. So I can't
Oh
wait.
my
That's gonna be
god! And then we've got
cool.
Ahsoka and just so much stuff.
Yeah, but
So
yeah, I'm
for all
loving.
the
Uh,
bitching and complaining people were doing about Disney's going to ruin Star Wars,
yeah,
I think they've kept it alive and revitalized it.
yeah, yeah,
If anything, for me, Disney's negative. I thought Spider-Man was fucking fantastic, but I was highly disappointed in Doctor Strange.
yeah. I haven't seen that. Is it?
Yeah, so as an MCU fan, I'm like now a little bit skeptical about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a
Yeah,
lot of
it seems
ways.
like they're due for a little bit of a dip at some point. They've been going pretty full
Yeah, I mean the
throttle for
movie
a
was
while.
visually amazing,
Yeah,
and they drizzled in some lip service for comic book fans, but as a whole, in where this storyline is going and what they chose to do with the characters, I was just not really into it, um
yeah,
as much, and I will say, for animation fans and fans of Bob's Burgers, the movie was
yeah.
great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
So
true.
I was, I'm always skeptical about that. I love The Simpsons. The Simpsons movie wasn't,
Yeah,
I think that we all kind of wanted a little bit more from it. Although from an animated movie standpoint, you know,
yeah.
I thought Beavis and Butthead translated well as a movie. I
Right.
loved that movie. But Bob's Burgers, if you haven't seen that movie and you are a fan of the cartoon, um, that's
Works out.
definitely a hit for the year, for
Cool.
sure so far for me.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. I haven't been to too many movies. I guess just touching on the crossover factor of Obi-Wan for sure has definitely been awesome. I've been digging that. Just Ewan McGregor's like probably at least top 5 favorite actor anyway. So it's just so awesome to see him and
yeah,
just getting the prequels were a little rough. I've come around to them over the years where I can bear with them, but those were a rough
yeah,
couple stretch there back in the day. So I've always felt like
totally.
he never got his due. It was like such a cool character, such a cool actor. I was like, how did this not work? I mean, he was great in it, but at the same time it's great to just see him in something that's a little heavier and darker, and and
Well,
him just
also because we have this huge time jump, though. Like,
yeah,
despite how you felt about the prequels, which sucked, it still gave us a lot of time in between the two.
yeah,
And yeah, we got Rogue One, but again, Rogue One was right before. A
Yeah,
New Hope.
there's a lot of good.
So what was
Yeah,
he doing this whole time? And
yeah,
and now we're kind of seeing that, and we're getting to see the badass Darth Vader that we'd never got. Like,
yeah.
why were people so afraid of him?
Right.
Well, now you're fucking seeing why.
Yeah, it was like the first time I gotten, spoilers maybe, but just watch it. If this point, if you're listening, you should probably have already seen it. But yeah,
Yeah,
just the way he comes barreling in, I've never just like, I mean, it was like full on horror movie in a sense, where he's just
yeah.
like, oh my god. And yeah, I love that. And even just the young girl actress playing a certain somebody was great. She's
Yeah, it's funny because she reminds me so much of my friend's daughter,
oh yeah.
um, Nola, and I was like, as soon as it came on, I was like, no way. I'm like, this reminds me of Nola, and I was like, well, I can tell you what she's gonna be for Halloween.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was definitely scared for about the first couple scenes. I was like, oh no, don't put a kid in this. It was like poor Ewan McGregor has to deal with another like baby version of a classic character.
Yeah,
I was like, oh god. It's like yippee, yay. It was like, oh
yeah,
no, but she's crushing it. She's doing great. So I can't
yeah.
wait to my only fear of the show is just that there's only a couple of them left. And I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna have to
I
binge watch
know,
them all over. I just don't want it to end. It's like,
and they are calling it a limited series, so I don't know if it's gonna have more than one season.
I don't think they're initially planning it, but I think it's pretty official now. I saw on a Star Wars page where because the ratings did so good on it or whatever, they are gonna do another one
Oh
somehow, like just do like a
God.
separate story. So yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
start
Even if it's
cramming things in, and like it seems like it could start getting a little too much in that time period if they try to do a whole nother storyline. But
yeah, but
I'm all
it's like, at some point there's going to be points where he's not just obviously sitting on Tatooine staring at Luke grow up. You know what I
right.
mean? So it's like
Yeah.
you can give us something,
Yeah, well, that's
like
what's going on now. At least I was a little worried of that. I was like, they better make this like a super artsy movie. If he's just gonna be hanging out on Tatooine watching this kid, like it better be like just really long shots of him like eating a bug in a cave,
yeah,
super
yeah.
artsy. Like, wow, this is dark and weird, man. He's just
Yeah, like, what the
like
hell?
hiding in a hole somewhere for like a whole episode. But
Yeah,
yeah, lots of
exactly.
good action. Just real quick, other shows, Kids in the Hall, I'm a huge fan, so they got
Oh
that
yeah, that's
on
back
Prime.
in action. Melissa's
Yep,
been watching it. I haven't sat down
awesome.
yet.
Yeah,
Really
there's like
good
at
so
least
far.
one or two in each episode that are just as hilarious as anything that I just keep thinking about and cracking me up. So that's worth watching. I loved Righteous Gemstones, came out super early in this year with Danny McBride about the
Yeah, yeah. I heard.
religious family and everything. I thought the second season they really stepped it up great. And as far as actual films, the Tony Hawk documentary on HBO, I loved. That was really good. Already kind of knowing his whole spiel, but it was great just to see more
Right, see
inside
it all.
depth
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
yeah, and just so much great footage that I hadn't seen before. And he's just a childhood hero, so that was
Oh, for
really
sure. Guy's an
cool.
icon.
Yeah, super cool. And
And we
Licorice
and
Pizza. Oh, sorry.
we talked about it but kind of before we hit the record button, but Stranger Things season 4 has definitely been
Yeah,
has been delivering for
yeah.
me without a doubt.
So that'll just be tough waiting for the next round, I guess. I'm
But
not
it's
done with it.
July though, right?
Oh,
It's
is
coming.
it coming up
Yeah,
fairly
I think
quick?
it's
Okay, they're not
yeah,
gonna.
it's fairly quick. I
They're
think
all
it's
gonna be like 30 in the next one. I'm like, hey, we're just a
yeah.
bunch of little kids.
I know.
They're already pushing it. When they do the flashback scenes, I was like, wow, they were really young in those other
I know, it's so crazy. I'm like, well, maybe things fast forwarded because of the upside down. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
totally. That's not
suspend
all me.
disbelief. Those are
Totally.
gonna be the things we're picking on. Meanwhile, we're talking about like alternate dimensions and shit.
Yeah.
You know. But
Cool.
yeah, so far I think um just with live music again has just been extremely therapeutic
Yeah.
for me to get back into that and realize how much I missed it. A lot of cool stuff coming up and going on. Um, like Motion City Soundtrack is finally on their tour of kind of their like reunion. I mention it because my good friend Neil Rubenstein, who is a musician and stand-up comedian, he's opening up that tour doing stand-up comedy. So if he comes to a city near you, don't give him a hard time because he's a fucking rad dude and he's really funny. So it's pretty rad. My friends in the band Bayside are out on tour with Thrice right now. It's cool to see them back out there and doing it again. And there's just a lot of great music. Like right now, it's like I want to go to the show and I want to go to the show and I want to go. And I'm like, all right, I gotta slow down, you know. But it's just, you know, when it's been gone for so long, it's just feels like you have to, you know, because I'm like, hey, this could go away again at someday, you know what I mean? You know, I'm kind of getting, you know, back out there. I just, you know, on Bandcamp just dropped a single from my new project called Cult Leader with a K. So believe that is out there. It'll be on all streaming June 17th. And I'm hoping to have the EP done and out in probably another month or so. So
awesome. Yeah, it sounds great, man. You did awesome with it. I'm digging it.
So I, you know, I'm kind of finally, like I said, putting down my acoustic guitar and just diving into the synthesizer and letting my Robert Smith out, you know.
Yes, it's good. Healthy for everyone.
So Gav, thanks for hanging out with me, talking singer-songwriters and stuff. And you know, I wanted to pull you over to my podcast to just rap and hang. If you guys want to hear more of us talking, you know, with our buddy Chaz about The Cure, and sometimes just Gavin, you know, we kind of rotate in and out on the Holy Hour podcast. But even if you're not a diehard Cure fan, I think it's something that you should definitely check out. It's some fun banter about a band that maybe you haven't dove deep into and you only know the hits. So if you want to like kind of know like where to go about things, or, you know, give that shit a listen.
Yeah, we try to balance it where we get super nerdy on like B-sides or something one episode, but then we'll do one where we're just kind of casually talking about music videos, you know, so that you can kind of tell by the title of the episode how nerdy we're gonna get, you know.
All right, my friend, a pleasure as always. Have a great night. We will talk again soon. Thanks for being on the Nobody Speaks podcast. Be good. Stay out of trouble.
Yes,
and I will talk to you soon.
Talk hard.
Yeah, always.
Peace.